everybody, to this week's Virtues Brand of Wrestling right here on the BigVitoBrand.com. Guess what? I want to talk about one Becky Lynch again, Ronda Rousey, the McMahons, Triple H, and Charlotte Flair. All right, so for those of you that don't know, I also write a column on NoDQ.com called Virtues Rage. The last year, I've just been doing videos and audio podcasting, very seldomly write because of time, my shoot job, this and that. Well, I finally got the itch this past weekend to do a written column, and I did it. And I explained basically, from my point of view, why today's wrestling fans are overly sensitive, overly critical. And I tied that into the most part Becky versus Ronda, and why the key lies in Charlotte. The answer lies in Charlotte Flair if Becky Lynch is really the man. I wrote this column 24 hours before Monday Night Raw happened. So I would like you to go to NoDQ.com and read Virtues Rage. You'll find it under the opinion section. You'll see it because it'll say overly critical wrestling fans, Becky versus Ronda, very easy to find. Read that column. It's about 1,500 words. Then you can come back and listen to my rant right now. Here's the moral of the story. Here's the gist, right? Becky Lynch. I like Becky Lynch. I liked Becky Lynch before the minions with the pitchforks and the torches liked Becky Lynch. I liked Becky Lynch when I liked Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, and Bayley from NXT to the main roster, the original Four Horsewomen. And I know there's some fans out there that liked them as well. But then they started choosing sides. They started maybe not liking Charlotte as much because she was pushed too much, this and that. And out of the Four Horsewomen, Becky and Bayley kind of got pushed behind Sasha and Charlotte. Bayley ended up getting her run. Becky's had her run. But for some strange reason, Becky is over like a martyr, like CM Punk was. Almost, like Daniel Bryan pre-Yes, or during the rise of the Yes movement, right? And I say those two people because I will compare Becky more to them than Stone Cold. The Stone Cold comparisons are absolute bullshit, right? Stone Cold would not cower down to the McMahons or Triple H. He would have raised hell. You threatened to suspend him, he would have punched everybody out. He would have went and found a vehicle and ran it into the ring. That's what Stone Cold would have done. The way they booked Becky, no. Nope. And the interesting thing is, I said the key lies with Charlotte if Becky Lynch truly is the man. Because we know Ronda, right? She came from UFC. And I'm talking about the women again because it's the hot topic in wrestling and WWE, okay? Ronda still isn't the best in the ring, although she's held her own when she's had the right supporting cast in there to help her, okay? She had a hell of a match with Kurt Angle, Triple H, and Stephanie at WrestleMania. So I'm not denying that, but you have the right pieces in there with Ronda, she shines. I'm sorry. I've watched a lot of Becky Lynch matches. She's a very good wrestler, but by no means is she the end-all, be-all performer in the ring, okay? I just don't think she is. They all botch, right? Big Vito, he's botched. When I did my match as a manager, I don't think I botched, but, I wasn't supposed to make myself look like I could work because I'm playing a character of a manager who's not supposed to be a wrestler. So, I slipped on the floor that was wet, stuff like that. Becky and Ronda, that's what the fans want because Becky's like their hero. Like, okay, give her, if you want to compare her to Stone Cold, because Stone Cold was the rise against the boss and everybody hated their jobs back then or their teachers and they always wanted to rebel against them. And Stone Cold was the way they could do that, living vicariously through Steve Austin. Oh, whatever. CM Punk spoke about, it's time to have more than just John Cena. It's time to push other guys. And he was the martyr during that era, and the fans loved it. Then he left the company. Now it was Daniel Bryan's time. The Yes Movement. We don't want Batista. We want Daniel Bryan. And now these same fans that have the smart marks, and I'm a fan, right? I'm a mark for myself. Along the way, now it's Becky. Now they want Becky to be this hero. Vince McMahon didn't become a billionaire by pushing Becky Lynch's and CM Punk's and Daniel Bryan's. Now, does he give them their moments to make the fans happy? Yes. Daniel Bryan had a moment at WrestleMania 30. CM Punk had an incredible run, even though he never went on last at Mania, which I think a lot of him complaining about that and leaving the company ultimately helped Daniel Bryan get that spot at WrestleMania 30. But, who knows? But the thing is, these fans cling to their saviors and their heroes, but Vince McMahon became a billionaire by pushing Hulk Hogan. His dad started this monster known as, back then it was WWF. He had Bruno Sammartino on the top for years. And then finally had to have Ivan Koloff beat him just so they could put the title on Pedro Morales, who unfortunately passed away today. And Vito and I just talked on Getting Color this week about wrestler deaths. And here we are. Every time something happens, it happens in threes. And I just hate that. It sucks. So rest in peace, Pedro Morales. Condolences to your family. Another legend gone. But Vince McMahon pushed Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, John Cena. Roman Reigns, different category because he was the guy once they got to the era of no one superstar is bigger than the WWE. Once they got to the streaming and social media era, Roman is the top guy. He's got handcuffs on. The other people that I mentioned previously didn't. But Roman, you could still very much consider him up there in that group. Notice I didn't mention CM Punk. I didn't mention Daniel Bryan. And I'm not going to mention Becky Lynch. I'm sorry. I like Becky. I was at WrestleMania last year and I took a picture with a cardboard cutout. If that doesn't say I like Becky Lynch, then screw you, okay? And I made it my profile picture on Twitter once. But here's the thing. This match was always, at WrestleMania, always going to be Charlotte versus Ronda. From my opinion. When they signed Ronda Rousey, right, and she did that, she made that appearance at WrestleMania 31, did that little thing with Stephanie, The Rock, and Triple H. And she ended up having that match in New Orleans last year with teaming up with Kurt Angle versus Stephanie and Triple H. The ultimate plan, if they were ever going to have women headline the show, whether they go on last or not, still remains to be seen. We got to see it happen first. It was going to be Ronda, mainstream Rousey, right? Because that's why Brock's the Universal Champion. They're former UFC champions, right? They appeal to other people other than wrestling fans. Might not be like mass appeal used to be with great creative in the Attitude Era, but at least it's something. It might draw 100, 200,000 more eyeballs, and great. And today's standards of percentage of ratings, that's a big deal. It was always going to be, in Vince McMahon's eyes, in my opinion, Charlotte versus Ronda in the spot. Somewhere along the way, the fans thought they rewrote it to Becky. The cheers got louder. I'm not going to say they got any louder than Rusev Day. T-shirts started selling. So did Rusev Day T-shirts. How's Rusev doing these days? So all of a sudden, these fans think that they're entitled to Becky versus Ronda at Mania to close Mania. So when did Becky just jump in front of in line for Charlotte Flair? Charlotte is a damn good wrestler. What? Because maybe a lot of the smarky marks don't think Charlotte's as attractive as Becky or as fiery as Becky, or she's more corporate, Stephanie McMahon, Vince McMahon-like. That's what made WWE an $80+ a share company, pushing people like that, selling toys of wrestlers that look like that. Look, Becky and Ronda closing a Mania with that pressure, if that closes, regardless of where it is on the show, they're going to get 20 minutes. There was obviously some worry backstage. Could those two ladies get through a match without getting nervous, forgetting stuff, botching? To make it easier, you throw in the other person. And I believe Charlotte was always there. It was always Charlotte and Ronda. Becky's the one that got thrown in it, even though they're making it look like Charlotte was thrown in it because Becky won the Rumble. And now they're doing the suspension angle and then Charlotte's, annoyed at her replacement by Vince McMahon. So they're making you, the smarks, think Charlotte's got added into the match. If you look at Vince McMahon's notes, it was always going to be Charlotte and Ronda. I know it. And again, I've studied Russo. I've had conversations with Russo about writing wrestling. He worked closely with Vince. He knows his tendencies. I've watched WWE for 30 years. I've seen how Vince is booked. I'm calling it like I see it, right? Truth. And I know it hurts a lot of people. It was always going to be Charlotte and Ronda. Becky was added. But you fans think that it was Becky and Ronda, and not everybody, because I honestly, when this whole thing happened on Monday Night Raw, I have had a lot of people loving the Charlotte thing, okay? So I know people agree with me just like they agree with Roman, because you make valid points on why WWE does the business the way they do, and it makes sense. But the reason why this is going to be a triple threat, because if it does go on last, if they want to make history and have the first women's main event in a WrestleMania, which I think it's about 90% going to happen, unless Vince has cold feet and puts Brock on last, you need the three women, right? And any professional wrestler like Vito, I know will back me up on this. You have the triple threat, because when you do a triple threat, it's called a couple of times in the match, all three of them quarrel. But most of the time during a triple threat, it's two people. The third person's doing their rest. And then they cycle through. And then it's easier to get through the match that way. It's easier to remember your spots, especially on a high-pressure stage like WrestleMania. That's why it's going to be a triple threat. And let's face it, out of Ronda, Becky, and Charlotte, Charlotte is a better ring general. I don't care what you say, Becky fans. Charlotte is a better ring general. She learned from the best. Ric Flair. Of course, they all went through NXT. I mean, not really Ronda, but Ronda's relying on the people she's working with. Charlotte knows the game. The third person in the match, the resting, like triple threat matches are played out, and the ring general Charlotte Flair, learning from her father, is more likely for this match to get through without a hitch. And the women to not feel that pressure. And ultimately, when it gets to the payoff, the last couple minutes of that match, that place is going to be rocking. And it doesn't matter if it would have been just Becky and Charlotte or Becky versus Ronda one-on-one. You are going to still rock because you want to still see Becky win, right? And there's Becky. I will do predictions later, right? Because my mind might change. I don't even want to tell you, and I might have tweeted my different scenarios. They could turn it into an elimination match too. They really think they want to make the fans who wanted to see Ronda versus Becky one-on-one, make it an elimination triple threat. And once the first person is pins are submitted, then they're out of the match, and then it becomes a one-on-one. They could very well still do that. But if it's a traditional triple threat, I've stated my reasons why I think it's best for business. And who knows? Maybe they can still have Becky beat Charlotte and get her spot back, and Charlotte's out of the main event. But I think at this point, that would make Vince McMahon, the character, look pretty stupid. So at this point, Vince McMahon said Charlotte's in the main event. That's just as good as her winning the Royal Rumble. She is. We know Ronda's not going to lose, and she's going to take the not the Universal title, but the Raw Women's Championship to Mania. So that leaves, how does Becky get in the match? Well, she's going to have to win a match at Fastlane or do something. They like to drag it out. So who knows how she's going to do it, but she will get in. And who knows? Maybe they'll have her maybe they'll have Becky face Asuka. And the winner of that match, whoever the SmackDown champion is, maybe they will go in the match and both titles will be on the line. One fall, two fall. I mean, there's so many possibilities they can do by them putting Charlotte in the match like they did. And let me clarify myself. I still think Becky was put in this scenario. Vince McMahon's note from day one, I guarantee it was Ronda Charlotte. Guarantee you. And Becky got hot because of the pitchforks and the torch fans kept going and chanting Becky, Becky, and going on social media, and Becky started playing along with it. So Becky politicked and worked her way into the spot, and that's what you do. I like how Vince McMahon said on Raw this week, you think you're bigger than the WWE. There were some brilliant lines. I mean, even Triple H had some brilliant lines. And I really think now WWE knows with social media, they are really going to play to the dislikes of the smarks. Because, look, let's face it. All they have to do to make you happy is put the belt on Becky at Mania, right? They can do that. And again, I'll talk about that another time. But Charlotte's there just like I said she would. Just like the movie National Treasure. The answer, the key, lies in Charlotte, which was a ship. They put it, Nicolas Cage's character put it in there, turned the dial, and it opened the room to a big treasure room. Well, guess what? That treasure room is the Queen Charlotte Flair, right? The daughter of the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Makes sense. Nepotism, just like Roman, stars rise to the top. Like Macho said, the cream always rises to the top. Charlotte earned her way there by busting her ass. Do you not see the work she did in those matches against Becky Lynch in the fall and the beginning of the winter? Charlotte Flair is legit. She has been good ever since she's been on the main roster. Just because you don't like her character and that she's too pushed heavily by Vince McMahon, get over it. There's a reason. Sometimes Vince makes it easier for other wrestlers to get the brass ring, but at the end of the day, you still have to grab it, right? And Charlotte Flair has done that. Hey, I'm anticipating this triple threat closing WrestleMania, and fans are going to be excited. And I know if you're sick of me talking about female wrestlers, well, we'll get into the other stuff heading into Mania season. There'll be a lot more to talk about. But right now, the hot topic, Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair. And it's interesting that the McMahons, Stephanie, and Triple H are all interjected in this storyline. Because why? It's WrestleMania season, folks. It is what it is. It's going to be what it's going to be. And you as a wrestling fan need to find a way to enjoy it or just stop watching. You know what? Why don't you just go say, oh, Becky's going to leave and go sign with AEW. Oh, I'm sure that's already been all over the internet. Oh, God, I can only imagine if she doesn't win the title at Mania, what fans are going to say. So with that said, my movie of the week, and this might be redundant because I might have done this on another Virtue's brand of wrestling in the past, but it's The Wrestler. And the reason why I wanted to show this one, because Big Vito and I on Getting Color this week, we talked about wrestler deaths and some of the wrestlers that put a lot into the business but never get to the New York or Stamford or the big league on television, don't get the recognition after they pass, like when Warrior passed. Everybody knew about him, or when Bruno Sammartino passed or Pedro Morales passed. Well, when other wrestlers that never become as big of stars as the other ones pass away, we don't really know if Randy the Ram in this movie passed away the way they ended it, but he just could not let the wrestling business go. He still wanted to be that star, and he would take steroids, but he blew all his money. He had bad family life. He had to go work in a deli at a store. It's just a very good story. Mickey Rourke did a hell of a job. Hell of a job. And this is one of my favorite movies. Marissa Tomei was also in it. She was a stripper. And nothing like my 40-year-old strippers. So I loved it. Very good movie. That's my movie of the week. Go watch it if you haven't seen it, but I'm sure if you're a wrestling fan, you've already watched it. So that's all I got for my Virtue's brand of wrestling this week. here on the BigVitoBrand.com. And I know you can also still go on BigVito.com as well. I think if you go to the BigVitoBrand.com, that's where you click the purple button. But I'm Virtue. You can follow me on Twitter at NoDQ_Virtue. You will see all of my good stuff there. I will post about all my other sites, all my other columns and videos and other things that I do. So there's no need to plug anything other than Twitter. I will be back like I always am on Monday with the next episode of Getting Color with Big Vito. So far, 2 episodes in, and we've got nothing but great feedback. I know it's not easy to replace Vince Russo. But I'm a little different. You know, Vince was in the business as a writer, worked with Vince McMahon, worked in WCW TNA, where I'm more of a Mark who's done a little bit of indie stuff. But I think I really bring a good dynamic with Vito. And by the way, he does not tell me what we're going to talk about. I have to go in there and we freestyle it. And I think that's been the great dynamic of these 2 episodes so far. So we'll be back with Getting Color, as always, on Monday. So thank you for watching. As always, this is Virtue's Branded Wrestling. See you soon.
This has been a production of the Big Vito Brand. Check us out on thebigvitobrand.com.